You're listening to the Teach Better Talk podcast featuring expert educators eager to share progressive tactics to reach more students. Teach Better Talk is created by teachers and fueled by passion. Let's get started.
Hey everyone, welcome to episode 79 of Teach Better Talk. I'm Ray Hewart and I am with, let's go with my Starbucks friend right here, Jeff Gargis, because you are sitting next to me drinking a cup of coffee.
I am drinking coffee and it's really weird that I'm sitting next to you because this is a special episode.
This is the first episode ever in our entire life that we are recording together in the exact same room.
Which is crazy. And we're in like a weird big room too.
We're in a massive room. We're actually at a conference in Akron, and I won't lie to you, this is the coolest venue ever.
Yo, it's the Akron Community Learning Center.
That sounds right.
Yeah, and it's gorgeous. We were trying to figure out, and I think Chelsea might be able to help us figure out what this is actually used for.
Do you know?
Well, this is our one high school. I actually graduated from this high school, but it didn't look like this when I graduated.
What high school was it?
This was still Firestone.
Okay, it was Firestone. Okay, that's what I thought.
Yep. So this is our new building. So this is kind of like the atrium area, but it's 3 levels and all open.
Okay.
And so it's kind of like our old building did have a big open area like this, but it wasn't 3 stories tall.
So students still attend actual classes here
they
throughout
do.
the year?
No
and stuff?
way.
Okay.
I want to go to this school
I know.
bad.
So we're live. It's the Akron Public Schools 3T, so it's APS3T conference, and that stands for Teach, Technology, Transform.
Yep.
Did I get that right? Okay, great. And we have a special guest who we ran into.
So special.
Yeah, so we've been connected with on Instagram, and she's in our Facebook group.
Yep.
Wait,
We found out.
For real though, we walked up to her, pulled up her Instagram account, was like, "This is you! I can't believe we
you
found
like stopped
you.
and you're like, I think that's. And
I was
looked
like,
at her,
I
is
know
that
her.
Chelsea?
Yes.
And because we knew we were going to be here, so we were like, oh, that'll be good. And we happened to run into you. It was just like a month ago, probably, that you said something in the group, and I'm like, whoa, there's someone in Akron running the grid method. Mm-hmm. I'm like, can I come to your class? Which I haven't done yet, but I will.
We got to do that.
So, which
I want to go to
be
her
hard
class.
to do right now. Are you guys still in school? Or are you out?
We are out.
You're out now. So we'll figure that out for the fall.
I know, right?
Yeah.
We're coming in. So. And I'm going to forget your last name, is Nicolino?
Nicolino.
So Chelsea Nicolino, you're an 8th grade science teacher.
Yes.
And you're at the Akron STEM?
Yep, National Inventors Hall of Fame Center of STEM. I mean, it's a really long word, but yeah, we're at the STEM Middle School.
It sounds fancy.
It is.
It's
Yeah,
fabulous.
Yes. So
You need to go follow her on Instagram though, because all I do is watch her Instagram stories and posts. She's doing such cool things with her class.
So typically we give a shout out to whoever gives you the word. Since Chelsea gave you the word today, let's shout out her handle. So
There we go.
Follows.
Her handle is an awesome one that I really, 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 really like. It's Just a Teacher from Akron. So definitely go follow her. I think we originally got connected on Instagram from Josie Bensko, so we can give her a shout out as well.
Thank you, Josie.
I work with Josie at Evans, and she's Maniacs in the Middle over on Instagram.
So is that Instagram? Are you on Twitter too, or just mainly Instagram?
I need to get back on Twitter.
Don't do much. Is it the same handle, or you're not even sure because you don't use it?
I think at one point it was Coach Nicolino for my students, but I just kind of fell into Instagram and kind of been afraid to get back into Twitter. But I know you guys love Twitter so much.
We do love Twitter, but I think Ray and I specifically have really started to enjoy Instagram a lot.
Mm-hmm. It's very different.
I don't do enough posts because I just love the story part of it.
Well, we're together though. Like we've been at conferences together for the last 3 days, and we've been posting like crazy.
Yeah.
So
we've done a lot to Twitter too. Actually, while you got live on Twitter doing the product, like we were featuring the HP awesome Chromebook that has a built-in triage system for master learning, and I was live on it was Storygram in it. Am I even using that?
You
right?
are not. Have you used Instagram before? Or is this your first time?
I was doing a story on that Instagrammatic thing.
Oh my god.
So then we ran into Chelsea and we figured, hey, let's just do a live recording here. We were kind of hoping we were able to do that. This worked out well. So we're gonna do it. We're gonna wing it here. What?
Well, I want to start with talking about Chelsea because we've obviously had discussions with her. We're about however long into this podcast, and we still don't know that much about you, Chelsea. So would you mind telling our listeners a little about you for a moment, kind of answering the question of when somebody asks you what you do, how do you describe yourself?
Well, I am an 8th grade science teacher. Like we mentioned before, I've been teaching for 4 years, so I'll be going into my 5th year. And I discovered the grid method this year, and that has completely transformed my classroom. And my next project is to write your Teach Further model next year. I know, I'm so excited.
I'm so stoked.
So, but I am a firm believer in purposeful integrated technology into my curriculum and individualized mastery-based learning and a ton of engagement. That was the main focus this year, is getting my kids engaged. And when I gave them a feedback form at the end of the year, most of them were saying that they were on a scale of 5. Most of them said they were like either a 4 or 5. They were super engaged all year. So that just warmed my heart all year.
That is great. So how long have you been teaching?
4 years.
4 years now.
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
Great.
Mm-hmm. Should we just end the podcast there? She literally touched on everything I love.
Yeah, great little pitch for the grid method and teach further. That's
done.
Awesome.
There we go.
Which I assume you already know, but in Ray's classroom, she actually basically layers the teach further model on top of the grid method.
Yes.
Which really allowed her to we see that they work well on their own, but when you put them together, it's just such a cool.
Well, because they accomplish 2 separate tasks in the classroom. One is to make your content relatable, and the other is to make it rigorous and purposeful. So when you put them together, they solve 2 separate problems, in our classroom. So it's important.
Very cool. All right, so let's talk about, I believe you said you listened to the podcast. So you talk a lot about failure.
Yes.
And I mentioned to see if you had any from when you tried to grid method, but maybe you have something else. But 4 years in, so now I'm sure, had a lot of ups and downs and challenges that you faced. So can you share with us a time you've had a failure, and sort of what happened, how did it make you feel, how did you then overcome that challenge, and then what did you take away from that experience?
Okay. I guess I could relate it back to when I first started the grid method.
Well, you don't have to. You can go whatever you want. I was just thinking that, but you may have already said something in your head. So
right.
Whatever.
Let her tell her story.
Do you guys want me? I'm going to leave.
Yeah, seriously.
No, you can stay.
Usually I can mute him because we're
says
virtual.
I can stay. So.
Well, I guess when I first started the grid method, we were doing all this, individualized, self-paced. I really embraced that. And so the first kind of failure, you could say, was I was having the students do labs at their own pace, which ended up blowing up in my face. I was like, I could not do that, all on their own. I don't know if you've seen on Instagram, I have a giant classroom. I'm really fortunate to have a classroom and then a lab connected to each other. It's huge. Yeah. But from a, classroom management standpoint, it was a hot mess. Kids were, I had kids in the lab and kids in the classroom, and they were this is when we first started the grid method, so they were still very, they needed a lot of hand holding. And so, they just had, I had lab supplies everywhere, and then it just didn't work out for us. So we reflected on that, and the kids were like, well, they're like, we really like it when you teach along with us and do labs with us. So I was like, okay, and I was like, oh, they need me. So I felt really loved. But yeah, I guess that you could say that was kind of a failure that I grew from. But.
Awesome.
I think that's the process with any time you implement a new initiative, is that there's a moment where you're constantly reflecting and changing and adapting. Not to call you out, Jeff, but it's top of mind. But in your social media course that you presented at the last conference we were at,
I'm doing that today too.
Oh, well, cool. It's a great course, or it's a great session. But the beginning of it, you talk about teaching a sailboat, which I thought was the coolest analogy ever.
Yeah.
We were constantly tinkering, right? So that's not. Your example of your classroom is a perfect example of a way you just needed to tinker the way that you were delivering your instruction and facilitating labs. I think that's really cool.
Yeah, constantly tinkering, messing with the sails, watching the flow of the waves and stuff like that. So,
Did I just give away a part of your presentation?
No, I love it. You don't have to come to the first part. You can come.
Oh, okay.
So now let's flip. Let's talk about a successful moment. And this can be something that's big or something that's small, but tell us what happened. Why was it a successful moment for you? And then what did you take away from that experience?
Well, this year I had a lot of success, but it was just that whole building relationships with my students. I was just telling, there's a parent of one of my students who also works in the district. We were just talking an hour ago, and I told her, I was like, I honestly woke up the day after the last day of school, and I was so sad because I had all these things to tell my students, and I wasn't going to see them the next day. But we just had a lot of fun this year. I laughed every day, and I think just sitting there and building those relationships with my students, that was really successful this year. And I mean, I know on your podcast, you always have guests that talk about you need to build relationships, And my first couple of years, I'm yeah, you do. But I really focused heavily on standards and content, which are important, but the relationships kind of took a back turn, or, it was on the back burner. And so I just focused on that a lot this year, and that seemed to really help.
Hey, what's up? It's Jeff. We're going to get right back to the episode, but how does $50 sound? Head over to teachbetterconference.com, look for the 2-day registration, put in a discount code, Podcast Talk, and you're going to save yourself $50 off registration. We're going to see you on November 8th and 9th at Teach Better Conference.
And right now, let's get back to the episode.
What was it that made you flip and focus on that this year? What was it can you think of what it was that like kind of triggered that to happen?
Well, my I guess 2 years now ago, I had a change in my schedule. I had 3 different grade levels that I was teaching. So it was kind of pulled in all these different directions, which I loved spending all that time with a lot of my students that I would have never come in contact with. Mm-hmm. In my building, how it's kind of laid out is we kind of have like our 5th grade floor is on one floor, and then I'm with the 8th graders. So we're in what we like to call the penthouse. We're all the way on the top floor.
Gotcha.
So you're kind of in your own little world and you don't see anybody. And so, that year, I kind of was just pulled in so many different directions. And it's not that I didn't make connections with kids. It was just like I couldn't fully delve into getting to know my kids as well as I did this year. And I guess, I know we were talking about before, my scores kind of dipped that year. And it was so disheartening to me. And I was like, what could I do better? And so that's what I really wanted to focus on was like just, teaching the whole student, getting to know these students well. What do they like? And what keeps them engaged? And what makes them want to come to my class every day.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm. You may have said just one of my favorite things, which was that this year you started focusing on relationships, but then you also earlier talked about how you started implementing a mastery classroom. And I think when people think about implementing the grid method, implementing any sort of mastery framework, they think that's really content driven. Like very naturally, they're like, oh, I'm focusing on my content. And the reality is when you shift to a mastery classroom, you actually have time to build relationships because you have time to see your students and interact with them more in a small group or one-on-one. Mm-hmm. So that was really cool that you just made that connection. I think that's awesome. So obviously there's a lot going on in education right now, a lot to get you excited, but I'd love to ask you what is getting you excited about education right now? What's really fueling your fire?
Teacher Instagram probably changed like the whole way I run my classroom. I mean, like Ray said before, I met Ray over Instagram, and it was I just remember seeing her classroom, and I was like, that is how I want my classroom to run. Like there were kids like everywhere, but it was like they were all learning and they were all engaged, and I'm like, that's what I want. So I know it's cliche, and no, they didn't pay me to say this or anything, but really, like, I have been on the Teach Better website probably all year. I told my principal, I'm like, if you would check my search history, I probably was on there like every single day, just looking up new ways to be better, and just, I don't know, it's changed my whole, professional career.
Did you pay her to say that?
I really did it.
She's like the best guest ever.
She is.
This is great.
I think she should be like now a new co-host. I don't think we need you anymore.
Oh, I'm out.
Well, you're out.
Okay.
Well,
all right.
I'm obviously not out. Did you hear that she followed me on Instagram?
That's
Come
true.
on. We're best friends right now.
Right.
Well, all right. I'll see you guys later.
Well, now I don't have to describe you in the beginning, so that's good. All right. Back to you, Chelsea. I do want to know, I love that you've taken this educational journey. I have loved following you as well. So
thank you.
The feeling is completely mutual. But what is a piece of advice you give to a teacher who's either new to the field, or maybe they're new to Instagram, like new to something, who's trying to really embrace kind of all that you're doing, all these great ways to engage with students and make your curriculum purposeful and connect with other educators? What advice do they need?
I think the biggest thing that I didn't do was I wasn't confident at all in myself. The building that I'm at, I have a lot of very experienced, amazing veteran teachers, and I was so kind of like intimidated by them and their awesomeness that I kind of was like, I was afraid to ask for help because I just didn't want to seem like I didn't know what I was talking about. But I think just being confident and like getting out there and actually networking. And to be perfectly honest, I was really nervous about meeting you two today.
Oh,
and
God.
Because I was like, I told my husband, what if they don't like me? But I know when my staff listens to this podcast, they're gonna laugh at me because they always make fun of me about how many podcasts I listen to, and I always I'm that person that sends out emails like, you gotta listen to this podcast and all this, and it's just, I think just getting out there and not being afraid to network with other people. I think that has really, really helped me as an educator, and just getting ideas from Instagram all the time. And because a lot of my students, they found me this year. It always happens. They're like, oh, hey, I found you on Instagram. And at first I was really afraid of that because I was like, oh gosh, like what would they say about me? Like, they already know I'm a nerd and a dork in class. So, it's okay if they see me on Instagram. But they were so helpful. And we actually collaborated, my students and I collaborated on Instagram this year. And so whenever I'd put out ideas, they're like, Coach, it's really cool, or like, hey, can we do this instead? So I like that interaction with them in a virtual space too, and they can see a positive influence on Instagram as well. You're
giving them that example of how to be responsible on social media and stuff. So that's we talk about that a lot. It's a hot topic of the digital citizenship and being responsible, and the best way that we can do that is by modeling it. I always talk about like, you can try to fight it, but you're not going to win. Like, it's coming, they're already on it. You can try to ban it and they'll just come up with another social media. So the best way we can do that is to show them how to use it in a positive way. Bring them into it and allow them to be on it. So
there are so many teachers that are nervous their students will find them on social media. So many. And I actually had the same fear when Josie Bensko encouraged me to go on Instagram. My biggest fear was, I can't go on Instagram. My students are on that platform, right? Like, I don't even know it. So would you mind sharing kind of your insight? I know you shared a little bit, but that you were worried about your students finding you and now you're not anymore. So is there any sort of shift that you've made to actually embrace it now that you actually don't mind at all that they're a part of your like professional profile?
I guess you kind of touched based on it, where it's inevitable. They're on social media, and that's how they get a lot of their information. That's how they socialize with one another. And I think just meeting them where they're at, and then we're teachers. We live outside the school building. I think they like to believe I don't sometimes, but they like to see like, hey, you're out and about, like you have a family, and like this is you play with your dog too. So I mean, just like being an actual human being, and I think that's really helped.
That connection can help build the relationships.
Yes,
because they see that you're real.
Yep,
they're going to see your stumbles and things like that. We talk about it all the time, like being authentic with them. That's another way to be authentic, because now they're going to see, oh, she's married, she's got a dog, like she does these things, she's going through these typical, she doesn't live in some weird like teacher hut. She lives in her own house. That kind
we used to think teachers lived at school, right?
There isn't a couch that comes down, whatever. So but go ahead.
I was just going to touch on like, this is such an important topic, so I don't want to take up all of our time in our podcast with it, but in terms of teachers and being on social media, there is a difference between a personal profile and a professional profile.
Yes.
And Chelsea, you very much have a fabulous professional teacher Instagram,
Thank
right?
you.
So, well, not only is it great for educators, but when you go onto it, you're touching on maybe some personal things. You're touching on dogs, touching on family, but it's still a very separate profile from somebody who would just be posting about their personal life. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And depending on what you use is for, like if you're going to, if you're using it to go talk politics or, get into, conflicts, and I'm not saying that necessarily in a bad way, but like in a conversation about, whatever, because you want to do that, or you're looking for funny memes or goofy things, whatever, that's a different type of thing. But yours is very focused on your teaching in your classroom, so then that overlaps and allows you to, like I said, touch on the personal stuff while it's all still professional.
Right.
And that's just being aware of who's potentially in your audience and doing that. So
if you're listening right now thinking about hopping on Instagram and obviously going to follow Chelsea, I would really encourage you to consider kind of what type of profile you might be building or might be working on building, because there's some great choices that you can make to get the audience that you're looking for, I guess.
I want to touch on one other piece you talked about, not having the confidence and being just afraid to ask for advice because you didn't want to seem like you didn't already know what you have. And I think that's extremely common amongst young teachers, or just teachers in general, who think, well, I've got my degree, I did all this stuff, they hired me, I should know what I'm talking about. I don't want to act like I don't and ask questions. So it sounds like you obviously got over that. So do you have any advice, or maybe just want to share like what got you over that hump of like not like being afraid or inconfident to go talk to one of these, because you had a wealth of resources in your building? So can you recall what it was that helped you shift past that and get past that and say, no, I can go to these people for help, it's okay that I'm still learning?
I guess it was when I have a very supportive team, a very supportive 8th grade team, and they have always encouraged me to kind of like think outside the box. And so eventually I got over that fear of like, seeming like I didn't know what I was doing, and I would just kind of brainstorm with them, and they were so open to like what I was thinking, and they don't put you down, or they would give you constructive criticism to make it better. So I think they have definitely helped. And so I think once my team was very supportive of me, then I was like, my principal gave me a lot of opportunities to kind of run professional development with my staff, so that definitely helped my fear as well. I mean, it's very intimidating at first, but and then my husband's very supportive too. He's also a teacher in Akron Public, and he is a phenomenal teacher, and we always piggyback off each other and talking about best practices and everything. And probably sometimes he thinks I talk about teaching too much. He's like, okay, Chelsea, we need to actually you get 5 minutes to talk about work and then you're done for today. But he's always been very encouraging and my best cheerleader. So I think just having that support system really helped me.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So, all right. We'll do the next 6 questions.
Oh, God.
Dun, dun, Your goal is to answer them in 15 seconds or less. Now, Ray usually tells everyone that I have a stopwatch, but you can see I don't.
You don't?
Okay, to be fair, let's preface this. Chelsea and our listeners. He can't have a stopwatch because we're recording this on his phone, and he has my phone looking at the
to make
question.
sure I don't forget the 6.
Exactly. So there's no stopwatch possible because we're out of resources.
But what she does have is we were just going to leer at her the entire time.
Exactly.
Right, I know, yeah.
Maybe I'll count with my fingers.
We're going to count and be like...
Exactly.
All right, so you ready? We're going to rock this out. All right, so what is one ed tech tool you cannot live without?
Right now I'm really into Edulastic.
Okay.
And Legends of Learning.
Oh, Legends of Learning, yes.
Yep.
What's a book that you're reading right now?
I'm actually reading Dave Burgess's Teach Like a Pirate.
Awesome.
Our building is reading that all together right now.
Shout out to the captain.
Yep.
Gotta love him.
Who do we need to follow on, we'll say, Instagram?
Okay.
Give us maybe 1, 2, or maybe even 3 if you want to go that far.
Oh, my gosh.
At least 1.
Okay. Well, we've already said Josie Bensko.
Yeah, she doesn't count. We already talked about it.
I know. Oh, man.
Can't talk about Ray. We already got Ray.
We already talked about Ray. We talked about Teach Better Team. Okay. So I really like following... the Townie teacher. I know she's English language arts, but I take so many ideas of hers and implement it into informational text reading and just getting kids excited about reading. I really like Teach Outside the Box. Hope and Wade King are obviously great to follow as well as Ron Clark. I could just go on and on.
Yeah, I said 3. You're at like 5.
I'm sorry.
You are over the limit.
There's so many
Sound the
people.
alarm. No, that's awesome. Good stuff. Give us either YouTube channel or website that's great for resources for teachers.
A YouTube channel or website. Oh gosh.
She already gave Teach Better.
I
did
teachbetter.com.
Definitely. Oh gosh, what other website? I'm always on Pinterest looking for ideas.
That's a good one.
Yep. As far as YouTube, I really like Pocket Full of Primary. I know she's like elementary, but I get a ton of good ideas from her as well.
Awesome. All right, give us a daily, weekly, or monthly routine that every teacher should get into.
Oh gosh, reflecting daily, weekly, monthly. I really embraced that this year, and it definitely made me a better teacher.
That's massive. And what is the best piece of advice you've ever received?
You don't have to be an expert in everything in order to do it.
I love that.
That's definitely what we've learned at this conference so far. And that's why I haven't implemented a lot of things. So I was like, I'm not an expert at it, but
that's great.
Your kids could be an expert in it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or you figure out how to be an expert.
Exactly.
You can Google how to be an expert.
Oh gosh, YouTube's wonderful.
Seriously, though.
Ray figured out a while back that all I ever do is Google everything.
Well, I was so confused because I'd call him and he always knew the answer. Always. Like, if I had any problem, you could call Jeff and he'd figure it out. And said it, like, he finally leaned in and was like, Ray, I'm just using Google.
The thing is, I usually say, like, Chad will call me and be like, hey, do we know how to, I'm like, we do X, Y, Z. And he's like, well, I didn't know you knew how to do that. I'm like, I Googled it. Like, I kept saying that. And finally, he realized, like, so you really are a Google. I'm like, I literally Google everything. Mm-hmm. I think it's one of the most important things you can teach anyone anywhere is how to Google. And whatever Google ends up being, if it stays Google or becomes some other thing, the ability to go find information and analyze and find the best source and distinguish between good, bad, fake, all that type of stuff. Being able to do that, you can literally do anything. You can teach yourself anything. So
I'm speaking on that topic in Arkansas tomorrow, where we're headed. And when we're in Arkansas tomorrow, we are going to be talking about how everything you want to learn right now is free on the internet. You just have to go find it.
Yeah.
So
we're live, so we'll do this. We're gonna say hi to Paul.
Hey, Paul.
Hi, Paul.
Hi, everybody. Paul, what's a Twitter or you got Twitter or Instagram? We can give a shout out real quick.
Shirky17.
Shirky17. Spell that for us.
SHIRKY and the number 1 and 7.
Paul's an awesome educator here in Akron. We had coffee the other week. He's actually helping out with the Teach Better conference in November. So we're live here. Paul didn't even know that we were live, and he's going to be on our special podcast episode. So we got right into it. So
I love it. Well, Chelsea, I know that we are coming to an end in our podcast. I want to make sure I ask you the most important question, which Hans Abel always makes fun of me because I say that every single time, but it is important.
She also, for some reason, thinks that her question is the most important.
My question is the most important.
But whatever.
Really, I just want to make sure that our listeners can connect with you, and this is just the beginning of them following and listening to your excellence. So would you mind sharing how they can get in contact with you?
I'm on Instagram at Just a Teacher from Akron. And then I guess I'm going to try to get back on Twitter. I'm going to see if I can get Just a Teacher from Akron handle. So we'll start that hopefully soon. So
I love it.
And then participate in your mastery chat. So that'll be fun.
We're going to figure that out right after this.
Okay. Yeah, literally when we press end.
All right, well, Chel, this was a lot of fun. So this was the first time we talked, but the first time we've ever done this live like this, which is great. And you were willing to test it out and see how it works. So hopefully it works out well, but we really appreciate you coming on and chatting with us and sharing your journey. It really means a lot to us, and it's awesome. So we really appreciate that. You guys know you can find everything we've talked about over in the show notes at teachbetter.com, as well as the links to connect with Chelsea on Instagram and hopefully on Twitter soon over there. So make sure you head over to teachbetter.com for all of that. And again, we just want to thank you for hanging out and having some fun and doing this live with us. So appreciate you.
Thank you.
Until next time, let's get out there and let's teach better.
Wow, that was the first time I heard that live.
I know, this is the first time any of this did live. I'm still recording, so I can keep that in there.